Happy Friday gamers, today we're going to be making some Tatooine style buildings for Star Wars Legion. Welcome to the first in the Star Wars Legion series, where we're going to be making some of the iconic terrain from the films. If you're new to Icarus Miniatures, don't forget to hit that subscribe button to keep up to date with every video we post. Today we're going to work on construction of some of the most iconic buildings from the Star Wars saga, the Mos Eisley buildings from Tatooine. So let's head over to the bench and get started. I began by cutting out the walls and ceiling on my hot wire table. I started with 12cm square pieces of blue foam for the walls and then mitered the corners to 45 degrees. I then cut the roof to 10 by 10 centimeters. I also cut 10cm polystyrene ball in half to make the dome for the roof. To assemble the walls I used hot glue, creating a basic box. Once the walls were together, the roof didn't quite fit, so I trimmed it down until the fit was snug. Then I ran a bead of hot glue inside the building and pushed the roof into place flat with the top of the walls. To get more variety in your buildings, you could make some of these roofs flush and some recessed. Next, I hot glued the dome onto the roof and moved on to the decoration. I'd cut some 2cm pillars that I then sloped on my hot wire table and began adding them around the building. After finishing the first two, I quickly realised I'd made the building far too tall. I liked the footprint but not the height, so I removed the sloping details and got my hot wire table back out to cut a few centimetres from the bottom of the building. With the height sorted, I went around the building and added the sloping details to the three sides. I left one side blank because I wanted an awning on one side of the building. Next, I made the door. I used the Herstarts mould for the door and created an archway based on the size of that piece, using my hot wire table to cut it out, and then I cleaned up the cuts using a file. I didn't glue these two elements into place straight away because I would be texturing the whole building with filler and didn't want to obscure the details of the door. Next, I applied my filler. Looking back on this, I applied the filler far too thickly, which caused some real issues later on, but we'll get to that. While the filler was still wet, I put the archway and door into place, and I used a hairdryer to speed up the drying process. If you do this, be careful not to hold the heat in one spot for too long, as you can crack the filler. Next, I added a base that I cut from 6mm MDF and beveled to 40 degrees on my scroll saw. I used hot glue to glue the building into place. To make the frame for the awning, I used two curved pieces of plastic sprue, but cocktail sticks would also work just fine here. Before adding the canvas for the awning, I based the piece, brushing raw PVA glue around the entire base and using a mix of small slate and sand to base the entire piece. For my first attempt at the awning, I soaked a plain face wipe in watered down PVA and draped it over the frame. This is a terrible approach as it leaves far too much moisture. It's much better to leave the wipe to air dry and then just paint it. The paint will stiffen the material as it dries. And with the awning added, I moved on and painted the piece. It was at this point that I decided I was really unhappy with the final result, which is why there was no video last week. I knew that I could do better, so decided to completely rebuild the model from scratch. Here you can see the original with its rough texture, poor groundwork and its dull colour scheme. I followed the steps laid out in this video to build the replacement, but did something different for the texture instead of using filler. Now filler would have worked perfectly if I applied it in a thinner layer, but I painted the whole piece with Mod Podge instead and then sprinkled on a very fine sand through a sieve. Using a sieve for this results in a lighter, less dense texture which reads much more nicely on the table. I also sieved my batch of sand to get rid of the larger pieces so that the base looked more like sand instead of earth. Everything else about the construction is the same as I've showed here in this video, but when painting I went with lighter tones for the new building and a more yellow colour on the base for the sand. Whichever texture method you use, make sure not to undercoat the model with black, as the rough surface will mean without another spray paint or an airbrush colour, black will always show through, which is part of what makes the first attempt I made look so poor. I base coated the second building in a more neutral tan colour, followed by a sandy coloured dry brush and then a dry brush of cream. For the base, I mixed my sandy colour with some yellow to make it stand out more against the building, then dry brushed that with cream as well. I'm so glad I redid this piece as the second attempt looks much better on the table and up close. Because I'd been through the process once before already, the second attempt came together very quickly in the construction as I was used to what I was doing. With the aid of my hot wire table and a hot glue gun, a building like this would take about 90 minutes to put together from scratch to the adding of the texture. And there you have it, 2 methods of building Tatooine style buildings for your games of Star Wars Legion. Have you picked up a copy of the game yet? Let me know which faction you've chosen to go for down in the comments below. And in other news, we passed 1,000 subscribers last week, which is awesome. There will be a giveaway or something similar coming soon once I've decided what it is, but if you've got any suggestions, put them down in the comments below. And until next time,
move along, move along.
Thanks for watching. If you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button down below for new content every single Friday. And if you want to keep watching, well, there's another couple videos for you to watch just over there. Happy gaming.